Happy Macintosh 2023 and welcome to another video with me, a retro tech guy. I picked this up recently. It says here that it belongs to the College of Music, but no more. Now it belongs to me. This is a Macintosh Powerbook 170, which was the top model in the original line of Powerbooks that came out in October of 1991. It was released along with the entry model, the Powerbook 100, and the mid-range model, the Powerbook 140. The 170 was introduced at $4,599 US, which adjusted for inflation in 2023 is the equivalent to over $10,000 US. Tinkering with one of these back in the day would have made me very nervous. The 170 has a Motorola 68030 processor clocked at 25 MHz and came with 4 MB of RAM expandable to up to 8 MB. It included a floating point unit and a monochrome active matrix display, along with a 40 MB hard drive as standard. The 140 shared the exact same case as this one, the 170. Both have the built-in floppy drive, which the Powerbook 100 didn't have. Compared with the 170 though, the 140 had a slower 16 MHz processor and a passive matrix display. The seller told me that he had tried to turn this unit on unsuccessfully, but there was no power supply included, so I don't know what he might have used. Let's see if we can get it to turn on. The computer is in pretty good shape, except for this branding of course, and some scratches on top. Let's have a look at the battery and hope that it hasn't leaked. It should slide out pretty easily. No leakage. Awesome. Is there any battery bulge? This usually happens before the battery leaks. No, not at all really. I've seen much worse. I'm going to remove the slot cover from the battery so I can reattach the slot cover only to the machine without risking leakage. You can also put some electrical tape on the contacts if you want the battery inside as ballast for balance, especially if it's not bulging. But for now, let's put it back inside for testing. I'm using my bench power supply for this. I have a bunch of original Powerbook 100 series power supplies, but none of them work. I've seen videos of how to make them work again by cracking them open using a vise and replacing the capacitors, but I don't have a vise and so I haven't got around to doing that yet. I've been trying to find replacement power supplies in second-hand shops, but 7.5 volts at 2 amps seem to be an unusual combination. Although in my experience the Powerbooks don't seem to pull more than 1.5 amps in current max. The power button is behind the hatch in the back, which is annoying, and I guess this causes it to break off. But the idea is to stop it from being pressed accidentally in a bag, I think. Right, let's press the power button. Okay, here we go. I'm pressing it. No, it's not pulling any current. Let's try holding the power button. No, still nothing. Okay, let's take this apart and see what we find. I'm using a Torx 8 to unscrew the 4 screws in the bottom. I'm also removing the battery since the cover holds the top and bottom halves together. Then there is a 5th screw behind the flap here in the back. This flap patch here is actually still attached to this case, which is unusual. And it has the retainer tab intact here as well. The 2 halves are attached with some plastic tabs in the front and with a single ribbon cable near the back. With some wriggling and gentle force, the 2 halves usually separate. No damages. Taking it apart, it seems. This is the top half, looking good. Right, here we are. Do I see any immediate problem? No. But here is the hard drive. And if I can't get this computer up and running, I'll take it out and try to image it to see if it still works and have a look what might be on it. Here we have the floppy drive. And this is a RAM module, very cool. And the way these 100 series were made is that the 140 and 170 have different motherboards, but they share the same daughter board with the 68030 processor on it. I'm going to remove this RAM module, or granddaughter board, I guess. Looks like some unpopulated spaces here on this side and on the other side, but it actually says 6 megabyte, which would bring the 170 up to 8 megabytes, which is the maximum with the 2 megabytes soldered on board. Here you see how the 140 and 170 share the same daughter board. But why aren't we getting any power? Let's look at the power connector to see if there's anything obviously wrong. Nothing visible really. Let's connect some power and measure it with the multimeter. I'm only getting 2.3 volts here on the other side of the barrel jack. Strange. On the actual leads, you can see that we do have 7.5 volts coming in. Very strange. Let's take it apart and look at the motherboard from the other side. I took the daughter board off first, and the plastic standoffs are actually intact in this one. This is a first on a Macintosh Powerbook 100 series for me. They actually seem to be intact there underneath as well. So this is the 68030 processor here on the daughter board. And this is where the top half of the computer connects. And this is where the RAM module goes. And the date there seems to be 1992. I realize that the way this is done, the motherboard sits around the drives, so we can just disconnect the ribbon cables, the floppy cable and the hard drive cable, and lift the motherboard right out. I hate these ribbon cables, they're fidgety and fragile. There's one more tiny ribbon cable next to the battery here that needs disconnecting. It connects to the side of the battery compartment, but I don't know what it's for. Here is something strange. Is that goo? No, it's not. Something has burnt through and melted the plastic sheet that covers the bottom here. Let's see which component it is. It must be this one that has overheated and melted the plastic. Very strange. And here's another standoff that we could have removed. It just broke right off and took with it the plastic. So brittle in these machines. There we see it, nice flush break with the board. Have to glue that back on. These are the other standoffs that they all seem intact. This right here must be related to why the board isn't working. Must be something power related, I guess. There doesn't seem to be any issues around the barrel jack on the motherboard. Nothing else looks unusual. Well, whatever happened, this component seriously overheated to burn through like that, and it's probably safe to assume that at least this component is fried. So I guess my first stab at fixing this should be to get a replacement part. I'm going to have to break out my other Powerbook 170 and try components around and see what is working and what is not. I'm curious to see if the daughter board from this one also is toast, or if it's just the motherboard. This is another Powerbook that I got hold of last year, and it's in great condition. As you can see, there is no branding on this one, just a sticker that I left on. This one has an issue though, and I'm going to turn it on and you'll see what the problem is. Another thing is that the hatch flap here on the back has broken off. I still have it, but it's really hard to get back on again once it's broken. Well, as you see here, it's actually working, but there is no backlight, which is annoying. This makes me want to try the screen from the new 170 on the bottom of my old 170 to see if the backlight works on the new one. So this is my old 170 opened, and as you can see, it has the smaller memory module installed. This is the 2 megabyte module. For the 140, these had to be bought separately for $300 to reach the 4 megabyte with the 2 megabytes on board. This module from the new 170 is 6 megabytes. So with this, we'll be bringing it up to 8 megabytes with the 2 megabytes onboard RAM, and so maxing it out. So I'm going to go ahead and swap the RAM and put the top of the new 170 on here. I forgot that the old 70 has the modem card installed with the connector that interferes with the slot cover on the new 170 top. Let's remove that. Now the moment of truth. Will there be backlight? Yay, there is backlight. Look at that. This screen is actually working. Wow. So the problem with these old active matrix screens is tunneling, which is dark spots occurring in the corners. I can't really see any of that so far, but apparently it tends to show up after a while if this is an issue. There's no hard drive connected, so we won't be able to start it up and see if it recognizes the new RAM. The screen has a really clear and crisp image, and I'm super excited about the backlight actually working. Awesome, then we know that we'll be able to put together a fully functioning 170 between these computers at least. And I won't be using the screen bezel with the branding on it, but rather the bezel from my old 170, this one with the sticker. Let's connect the PiSCSI and see if we can boot System 7 and if it recognizes the RAM. The PiSCSI is connected here in the back, and we need the power connected as well. Nice chime there, and still the backlight. Strange boot up pattern. I wonder if this is normal. Yes, happy Mac there. We're booting into System 7, and this is an English language installation then. It looks a bit darker in the corners, and the brightness slider is as far as it goes to the right. We have an automatic restart here because of an extension that restarts it into 32-bit mode if the computer has been without battery. So we are booted in, and with the active matrix screen, the pointer doesn't trail but follows along nicely. Alright, here's the moment of truth. About this Macintosh, do we have 8 megabytes of RAM visible? Yes, look at that. 8 megabytes. 8192K, that's brilliant. I looked it up, and the 6 megabyte module that we have here costed $899 back in 1991. That is just shy of $2,000 today's money. That is insane. So cool that we have that installed. If you do have a Powerbook 170 that you do want to upgrade, there are brand new modules being made and sold for $79 on eBay. See the link in the description. So this is great. My 170 now actually has the backlight screen and 8 megabytes of RAM. There is some tunneling appearing, however, in the corners, especially in the bottom right corner. And that would probably just get worse with time. We may want to try the LCD from my old 170 and see if that panel has less issues with tunneling. So this is the screen that didn't have the backlight, and I'm going to swap out the inverter board to see if it's the inverter board that is at fault or if it's the light bulbs inside the LCD panel. So this is essentially my old 170 but with the inverter board from the new 170. If this works, then we know that is the inverter board in my old 170 that isn't working. Yes, it's working, so it is the inverter board and not the light source, the light bulbs, that are at fault. I'm also hoping that this LCD panel doesn't have as much tunneling as the one in the new 170. In that case, we'll just use the inverter board from the new 170 and we don't need to swap the LCD panels around. Floppy disk appears, great, still working then. I do want to test the daughter board of the new 170 to see if it works, but after the plan is to combine the best parts into one functioning machine. From the old laptop, we'll take the logic board, the modem card and the top half without the stamp. And from the new one, we'll take the bottom half with the intact flap on the back. We'll take the bigger RAM module. We'll take the inverter board that apparently works, and we'll take the hard drive if it works. Now I have my old daughter board in here, but let's put the new daughter board and see if it works. If the new daughter board works, then the fault must only be with the new motherboard, and I'll try to fix that on another occasion. Interesting, these daughter boards come in two different shades of green. This one is slightly more bluish green, and this one is more yellowish green. Looking at the dates, the more bluish one seemed to be the older one, at least in this case. I know now that both RAM modules work, both my original 2MB module and the new 6MB module. I'm putting in the 6MB module and reattaching the screen for testing. So here we are. Let's have a look and see if it starts up with the new daughter board. Excellent, it's asking for a boot disk there, and so it seems to work fine. So this is interesting. I found that on the I took away the slot cover from the battery, and you look at this, on the computer itself it says it's from 92, but on this slot cover it actually says 95. So this was replaced with a more modern battery. Whereas from my old 170 it says that it's from 91, and the slot cover says 91 there as well. So at closer inspection, the standoffs on the new top half actually look much better than on the old one, both for the inverter board here and for the trackball assembly. So I won't be using this back of the screen bezel, of course, with the branding, but the new one. This is the new 170 bottom with the intact flap and the burnt plastic there. And this is the old 170 bottom cleared out. We'll use the plastic sheet from this one in the new assembly. Here we have the old motherboard and daughter board transferred to the new case with the new RAM module. Now I have to disassemble both top halves to transfer the LCD panel without the tunneling of the old 170 to the new top half. That's one disassembled, now the other one. Two great things with the 170 is that the LCD panel doesn't have capacitors that need changing, and you can actually disconnect the ribbon cable from the panel. In the later Powerbook 160, these are both annoying features that I'll be tackling in a future video. Here you can see the broken standoff in my old top half under the inverter board. It's kind of too broken to glue together, but I guess I could restructure it in the future. Good bottom and top prepared, now only to put them together. And that's it, very pleased to have this put together. I'm finally going to remove the sticker though. I recently got some stickers with another computer, see link on screen. And I want to try to make this one as nice looking as possible. Now hopefully we can remove any trace of it with some 99.9% isopropanol alcohol. That turned out nicely, excellent. So here we have it, the hopefully now fully functioning 170. Now we're going to try to boot it from the internal hard drive that came with the new 170, which is inside. Only on rare occasions have I found that the hard drive in these 100 series Powerbooks still work after 30 years. Old SCSI drives tend to fail regardless, but since laptops get thrown around more, their drives are especially prone to failure. We're getting the floppy with the question mark, meaning it can't find the boot disk. This means it's not able to boot from the hard drive, unfortunately. So let's connect the Pi SCSI again and boot with that. Since this isn't working, I'll be opening up later and removing the hard drive so we don't have to hear it. Maybe I'll open the actual hard drive as well and try to get it working, at least to be able to image it. I do have a blue SCSI for laptops that I'll be putting into this one on a later occasion. Right, 8 megabytes of RAM still visible, and so far no tunneling on this LCD panel. Fantastic. So here we have the two 170s on my desk. The right one here is the one we put together with the best parts. We have the LCD panel without the apparent tunneling, the inverter board that is actually working with a backlight, the modem card, and the 6 megabyte RAM module. This one then has all the defects that we've seen on the two machines, the most serious being the potentially fried motherboard that needs at least one new component. It also has the faulty inverter board and the LCD panel with the visible tunneling. I'm going to leave this one as a project for another occasion. This one is looking really good on the LCD, and if we close the lid, we can see that it cleaned up nicely from the sticker. This one, of course, has the tag that we won't be able to do anything about. This one also has the bottom part with the intact hatch flap here on the back. And this one doesn't. I do have this flap though, so maybe I'll try to reattach it somehow. I'm using my bench power supply, but as I said, I'm hoping to get one of my original power adapters working. So in the future, I'll be fixing a power adapter, and I'm also probably going to want to rebuild the battery with modern cells so I can take this out and write in cafes. That would be cool. I'm also going to install that blue SCSI inside. I decided to leave the computer on for longer to see if the new LCD panel really didn't have any tunneling issue. I took the opportunity to play some Spectre Challenger that I really enjoy. I used to play this on our Performa 636 as a child, but it plays very nicely on black and white screens as well. The arrow layout on this keyboard is messed up though for playing this kind of game. The backlight isn't super bright, but it does give enough light in this rather light room. And the good news, after 30 minutes of being turned on, there were no signs of tunneling whatsoever on this LCD. That is excellent. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this kind of thing, do hit that like button. And if you'd like more retro computing coming your way, do consider subscribing to the channel. And thank you for watching. Bye!